Right. This is Barbara.
Well,
Good morning.
good morning, Bob.
I just wanted to point out in verse 24 um, that when it talked about the crowd getting into boats and coming to Capernaum looking for Jesus, that the meaning of Capernaum is the village of comfort. That's the that that's the Hebrew meaning underlying it, and so it's talking about um, they're going to the place of comfort, or Jesus representing that place of comfort. Whether they knew it or not, I'm just saying that's what it means.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Barb. And I did look that up, and I forgot to go into that. I did not see the connection there, but thank you. You did. Thank you. Uh, Someone else? Anyone else? So what we're looking at here is this thing is a journey. This thing is a something that you pursue, and it is an action thing. So he's saying because you saw, not because you saw signs. He's saying that your perspective on things are not what they should be if you are truly looking for this. It reminds me of he's saying to the rich man, sell what you have and follow me. In other words, you see something, you're not sure what you see, but how bad do you want to pursue it? You know that internally something is vibing in you to tell you that this is something worth pursuing, something that you need to have, but how badly do you want it? And the thing is, the start of the pursuit is just your desire. It's just your desire. So if you're looking internally, or if you're looking externally, that's something we talked about on many occasions. We are, caught up in the multi-billion-dollar industry that we have to take care of the body. Everything is designed to take care of the body, whether or not it's sicknesses, whether or not it's a better way to preserve food, or so he's saying your perspective on things is not going to lead you to eternal life, or going to lead you into the spiritual direction that you're looking for. Which also says you do not understand who I am. They do not understand that he's trying to point them to what is inside of them, which is already there, not something that there has to be invented, but something they need to discover that's already inside of them. Okay.
Also, as you discussed this, I thought about as you were talking about the external kinds of things. Those are the kinds of things that are immediate kinds of gratification. We think that we are filled. We think we have what we need. We think we have enough of what we want until we need that again. But with the food that comes from the Father, we don't have to look at external things to satisfy our desires. And once we eat the food disappears and it's gone, and we get hungry again. But this says that there's something that I can give you that will keep you and hold you regardless of what happens from the outside. So don't get distracted by what you see, but what you see. In other words, not what you see with your eyes, but what you see internally with your eye.
Exactly, because how many times we have in the last year or so, we even, I remember us, pastor and the teachers, getting together and having a session, just prayer, meditation, reassurance that we are on the right track. We're doing the right things, and so you look at this, and there is nothing wrong with that from that perspective either, because we are each other. We're all one. And I was even telling Pastor this week when I stopped and looked at, paused the television for a few minutes and looked at that trial of the three men who killed the young man in Georgia, I think it was, and I can't remember his name now. Just the thought of them asking the courts to allow them. Yes. Just the thought of them asking the courts to allow his mental and his criminal record in so they could show a pattern, it took me someplace. And briefly, I was telling Pastor, as soon as I started to get angry about it, the image and the word "a boom" came in my head, and it kind of distracted me enough to start looking at that, because I remember I'd gone to bed that night thinking about it, kind of meditating on it, and it brought it back to my attention, and in that split second, it took away my anger, and I immediately changed the channel, because I don't need to see this right now. So that is part of what we're talking about. That is the nourishment that I need. That is part of what's in me, and the strong desire to be truth and be enlightenment, because the journey is not just for you. The journey is that you become light to and for others that are also contemplating which direction to go in. Okay? So that kind of works us into, and I'm trying to look at this conceptually. So if there's something you see that you want to move around, do not, you don't have to stay in the place that I am. I'm trying to, there are a couple of things here that kind of jumped out at me. So as I bring them to attention, if there's something else you want to see, please feel free. But verse 27 says, do not.
Hey, Ron, quick question for you, man. When you talk about the sea, maybe Jesus knew he knew he had to be on the sea, because when I say sea, S-E-A, I mean, if you're going to talk to 5,000 people, you darn near need a microphone. You need some form of technology for your words to reach someone. So maybe the sea was the energy that carried his words out. So, and I could be off in saying that, or I could be accurate in saying it. Yeah, but you have to almost ask yourself, 5,000 people here to see a person. It doesn't matter who it is, but it's Jesus. How can those words reach everyone without Instagram, without any form of technology? So I'm just saying maybe that sea, because you did say the sea would roar. So the sea does make a noise. If you're on a lake, your words will go across that lake almost like the person is standing next to you. So I just want to add that in. Maybe that's why he was on the sea, because he knew he was going to be speaking to an abundance of people. Fair to say, not fair to say, or what?
No, I think that's a good point. And one of the things I was trying to say at the beginning was the sea represents a lot of things. It represents mystery, for one. It was something that they feared. It was something that was mysterious to them. And as I said, it was, for them to get in small boats was no small thing. That's saying something right there. I like what you're saying. Maybe the sea or served as a part of the mechanism for the word to get out, kind of echoing off the waters. I see it as partly a mystery, something that I don't quite understand fully yet. As also with the mountains, because I also look at every place in the scripture where water is used in the beginning, and when he talks about the darkness over the face of the deep, and even when the people that were lame or sick went and sat by the pool and waited for somebody to stir it up. So there's healing power there. There's wisdom in the sea. There is life in the sea. And I think one of the things answers that it talks about is the wisdom and the stirring up is what brings about those stirring up that darkness and bringing about enlightenment to things that you want clarity on. So I see the sea as in various ways being used in the scriptures, and so I appreciate what you're saying. And if I'm off at it, and someone else can bring more clarity, yes, Pastor.
The sea, just like everything else, is contextual, and I do see it through what George stated. However, we have to deal with it in the context that we find it, right? So when it talks about on the other side of the sea in relationship to Capernaum, when Capernaum being a place of consolation or village of consolation, when we look at sea as a roaring, and understand that roaring speaks to the idea of a loud noise in terms of crying out for deliverance or crying out in celebration because you've been delivered, or crying out of joy, then we see that contextually speaking, there are those who found comfort who were crying out because of their sorrows, and those who were crying out because they found comfort because of the results, rather, of having found comfort. They're crying out with joy, if we look at it contextually. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Verma.
The Bible you're reading from, does it say roaring sea?
Sea speaks to roaring anyway. If you look at the word, look up sea, it would say a roaring in the Aramaic or the Hebrew.
Okay, and that means that it's speaking?
When you look up the concept of roaring, it does speak to the idea of speech or type of verbal expression.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
When it says the other side of the sea, is there any significance to that? I mean, we know what the sea is, but the other side of the sea.
Side.
Is it speaking to? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
Go ahead.
Side speaks to being beyond something.
I think it answers. If I can put Audrey, if I can put Pastor's answer in what Barbara said, Capernaum being the village of comfort or consolation, and so he's saying that they left a place where there was not comfort or consolation. So it's talking about. If I will, somebody help me with this, a change in attitude, a change in mind, moving to a place of peace, moving to a better place of understanding or being able to see something that is more comforting or clearer to you than had previous been. Is it safe to say that? Am I seeing that correctly? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, the
I can see
translation.
that.
The translation I have says, "And when they found him at the crossing of the sea," which goes into that
Okay.
transition that you just talked about.
Does that make sense, Audrey?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Um,
And God, go ahead, Sheldon.
oh, go ahead. You may be going there or still on the crossing, and I was saying something in verse 27. You can go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is I just from the last few questions and comments, I appreciate it because you guys bring clarity on things that we or I had omitted that brings enlightenment to the story or the truth that we're trying to uncover. So thank you. Yeah, I think that hopefully it's bringing clarity anyway.
Ron, before we go any further, George had asked, how did he speak to the multitude? Because we don't have today's technology. Did we ever address that? Did y'all ever address that? Maybe I missed it. I don't know.
I don't know if it doesn't mention that in here anywhere, or maybe it's something that I'm not seeing. But I know I didn't mention that. I don't know how he spoke to the multitude. All I know that he did. He communicated with them.
Well, isn't it? Oh, go ahead, Pastor. Go ahead.
There were certain places where people spoke to multitudes, and the reason they chose certain places in the natural is because of the acoustics and how sound traveled, and even in the marketplace or in the places of governmental structures where governors spoke from the steps of those structures. They were constructed in such a way that the voice would carry across the area. I remember being in Rome and visiting the place where Mussolini spoke to the crowd. And because of the way the buildings were situated, everyone would be able to hear, even if he did not have a microphone, because of the acoustics.
Pastor,
Yes.
I wanted to add, too, that when we were in Kenya, if you recall, as the children got ready for school every morning and they had to walk for miles to school, as they were singing very softly, we were not where they were because we were somewhere else living with the family, but you could hear the voices carry on the wind, and that was everywhere, wherever they were. They never spoke they never projected their voices to be loud in any manner, and it always carried on the wind. And we were always in awe of that when we were in Africa because they didn't have to shout, they didn't have to yell, the voice just automatically carried on the wind. Do you remember that?
I do. It was like the chirping of a bird that's a half mile away. You can hear it because they were in rhythm with the universe itself. And being in rhythm with the flow of the air, their voices carried very easily. Absolutely.
I know that what we read are metaphors in the Bible, but I can also see where we can speak to each other without speaking verbally. And even when God speaks, or the Creator speaks, I hear it without it talk. You know what I'm saying? Without it being there with me physically. So is that another way where the Creator or Jesus was communicating with the 5,000?
No. No, it's different, Evelyn, in that George was asking about a physical, verbal expression being carried to the ears of a multitude of people, right?
Uh-huh.
You are talking about is our spiritual communication without being verbal at all. Both of those are real. And what Kath and I were giving examples of, especially when the Kath was talking about when we were there in Africa, is the verbal communication in a physical way.
Okay.
And that communication being carried on the wings of the wind, even on the inside. Now that I think about it, when we were teaching, there were any number of people within this enclosure environment, and they never raised their voice, even at the back of the. They could be at the very back of the crowd, and you could still hear their questions very clearly. So, giving thought to it now, after those many years, I'm hearing how it's the melody of the voices flowed. The language was in tune with the breath and the flow of the air. And if you listen at the language itself, be it Kiswahili or Kidogo, you can hear the flow of the words and how they are melodious when you speak them. And what we call melody is simply a sound that is in tune with breathing. That's all singing is, being in tune with breathing, or allowing the words to flow on the backs of the air. So I hope that helped him.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? We are in the 6th chapter of John, verses 24 through 29. At least that's where we started. If there's something else you want to look at in relation to this to make a point, please feel free. Any other questions or comments?
Just a sort of aha for me. This is Barbara. When you look at the word water, it's spelled mem yod. When you look at the word seed, it's spelled yod mem. So what it's saying is that when that spirituality is part of what you're doing, which I think is what Pastor and Lynn, Kathy were referring to. When that's mixed in with everything, it doesn't matter what the external is that we usually see, a roaring, the waves coming in, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't prevent the traveling, if you will, of the speech. When yod is entered into that mix, it's like a betrothal. It's like a combination and a combining and a unification in a sense. And then and it's the place where God dwells. So even the sea can become as water and the water as sea, depending on how you look at it. Mem being perfection, and water being spirituality. I don't know if that adds it. I see it. I see it, but I can't really relay it.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Barbara, and I know that it meant something. I just didn't know how to tie it together to this. but you're absolutely right. I'm sure it has a spiritual significance. In other words, the two are used interchangeably, but they have different purposes if you look at it from a spiritual perspective. At least that's what I kind of concluded in it. But I agree with you. And that's what I said, that there's so many different ways when you look at water, and he crossed the sea many a times, and even when he did his, when he stepped in the boat to preach or to teach from the sea, all of this has a significance. And that's part of it. It's as you just said, probably the majority of it, but I think there's even something there that everything kind of takes me back to Genesis and the beginning of the deep. It takes desire and want to, I guess, to stir up the waters or to go beyond the surface of the deep. And I think that's where wisdom lies, spiritual wisdom lies in life. So, and I think I'm probably pretty much saying the same thing you were saying, just in a different way. But any other question? It's something more to it. I just don't quite know how to, but I'm glad you brought it up, because it was one of the things I probably wouldn't have brought up because I didn't know how to explain it. So, any other questions or comments? Okay. The other thing that really caught my eye here is he's making a point of talking about food and nourishment and trying to understand the spiritual nourishment and what that means. And he says to here, in verse 27, do not work for the food which perishes, which is what Barbara talked about, but for the food which endures to eternal life. That word endures to me kind of stood out to me, endures to eternal life. It speaks to me of the journey that we're on, the things that we partake in, the moving from one side of the sea to another. In other words, moving from a dark place to places of comfort, and becoming discomforted in that place and going to another place. In other words, as we begin this journey, the energy does not allow you to become comfortable and stand still, because there's more enlightenment to be gained, and there's more to see, more to do. There's more people that are in confusion, that are looking for some answers, and you become that which you seek. So this word to me kind of stood out. The endures. It talks about that there will be trying times. There will be situations where your feelings and emotions get the better of you. As I talked about with watching that small part of the trial, there will be times when those many voices or speak to you that are not the betterment of your spiritual growth, and you not only endure for your sake, and endurance also speaks to your experiences, meaning that you are the history of the wisdom of Elohim coming together and bringing about understanding, and that is who you have become, is the intimacy of those experiences, or the intimacy of those things that at one time were darkened in you that are now light. So this talks about that, because as we look at eternal life, you notice that, please notice anyway, that this statement is not talking about on the other side of this thing we call life, this is talking about while we're in the earth. So you become one with God. You become one with Elohim. You get to know yourself, and that is that intimacy, that experience that grows in you and takes you to different elevations and even to the top of this mountain that we're talking about. But anyone else, is there something else that you see here? Because that just kind of stood out to me that I thought was worth taking a pause on.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well. And then I wanted to also share the version I have, the Aramaic version, in terms of the eternal life that you were talking about. And it was saying you shouldn't, just reading verse 27, you shouldn't labor for the food which perishes, but rather for the food which remains unto lives which are eternal, that which the Son of Man will give unto you, for this one God the Father has sealed. But here he's not speaking to their human existence. He is actually trying to speak to them and to tell them rather what is more important or what they should be desiring or hunger or thirsty for, trying to eat, etc. Is the food that he is trying to feed their soul. And their soul is more so the eternal part of themselves. Whereas far as they were only concerned with satisfying the physical aspects of themselves. So he is trying to get them to see and understand more. And right here is talking about not taking them beyond a physical human just existence, but he is also trying to get them to see and taking their awareness to one that is eternal, because they are already eternal, but don't realize that. And so he is trying he's trying to open their first eye that is closed in a sense.
Okay. Thank you, Charlotte. That really kind of tied it all up. It even took us back to C and Capernaum, looking at that. So, and that was one of the thoughts in a moment. If tie into what you just said. Something moved inside of them to take them to make them to follow him, to get into these boats, and what he is trying to show them is that thing that is stirring inside of you. Do not think it's only because your physical body is satisfied. There's a more there, and you can relate to this more as readily as you can being full because you just had a meal. So yeah, I think that just kind of ties it up, and that's kind of where the journey is in the earth right now. Elohim, as in the last couple of years anyway, as I have witnessed or think I've seen, allowed a stirring to be put in the land so that we can look internally or look and see that there is a more, there is something more than being born in this land and raising up and having families and doing all the physical things that the earth requires of you. There is something much deeper to our existence here, and I even say we are in the process, as when we coupling it to the scriptures, we're in the process of ushering in this new heaven and new earth. We're cleansing the air. We're cleansing and bringing understanding to the words of Elohim, the words of that were spoken in the scriptures. So I readily agree with you. This is this endurance is talking about the journey that we're on, and it's one of the things that I think the churches miss wholeheartedly everybody wants to talk about, what happens when you die and what you can receive, but we don't put enough emphasis on the journey. The journey is not only for you to gain a perspective of who you are, but the journey is so that others can see the light that you are and be attached to that, or have a desire to seek and know themselves the way, the way that you bring understanding to their questions or to their concerns in life. So it has many purposes, and all of it does not just happen to be with Ron. It is showing you that mankind is attached, and it defines forgiveness. It defines love. It defines hope. It defines compassion. All of that is part of that endurance, because as you go through this, your experiences grow, and that is what other people are to feed from. Questions or comments? Okay. So, eternal life which the Son of Man should give to you, for to him the Father.
Ron, before you go on.
Yes, sir.
Jesus, what I'm gathering from this is that Jesus was saying that you're not here because of the miracle. You're here because your stomach was filled, right? So Jesus said that you are more focused on taking care of your physical needs than you are on the greater thing, which is the miracle. And he's saying it's not wrong by any means for you to have your stomach filled with the meat or with the bread that sustains your body. However, it is far more important that you understand the bread that you're going to need on this spiritual journey is not the physical bread, because it will not sustain you on this journey. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Makes perfectly good sense.
And if you don't, if you're not aware of the necessity of receiving the bread that was sent to you from heaven, the manna that was sent to those in the wilderness for the sustaining the sustaining of their bodies. For this bread that was sent in the form of me, says Jesus, is far more, has a greater ability to sustain you in an area where you need to be sustained more than ever. And that is on this journey. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. Anyone else?
Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
So the food that we're getting on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays, that's the same thing that Jesus is talking about. This is because what I get on those 3 days, that's what helps carry me and to be able to deal with people on a daily basis. So is that the same principle?
Yes, ma'am. It not only, Evelyn, deal with people on a daily basis, as I mentioned, in watching the television show, sitting here by myself, it helps me to deal with me. It probably helps me to deal with me more than anything external can pull in any direction the external world can pull me in. So yes, we are giving our all to understand truth and become truth. And that is what he's talking about. That is the bread that he's talking about here.
Yeah, because if I didn't get what we get on those 3 days, God knows I'd probably be in an asylum or something. So even with my situations that I have to deal with, you're right. I see where you're coming from. But thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, I would dare to say, I would venture to say that it is um, involving us learning about who we are or how to deal with ourselves more so than anyone, because if you're unable to deal with you, you certainly can't deal with other people. And I'll give you an example of that. Earlier, you stated that when you were watching the Arbery pretrial argument, how you felt about that. And when a wound came to mind, it balanced you out and you walked away from it. If you had not been able to do that, then what happens when you come in contact with someone who sees it differently than you? That would present a problem. However, since you were able to deal with yourself, now you are able to deal with them. So it is my belief that Jesus is saying to them, you cannot get so caught up into dealing with the sustaining of your body and forget the sustaining of your soul, meaning that yes, it's fine to deal with your body so you can live in this earth physically, but it's more important for you to deal with you eating spiritual bread, because if you are unable to deal with you, you certainly won't be able to deal with other people. And I'm not just talking about them learning from your example. I'm talking about dealing with them and their views of things, how the church is so different than who we are in terms of how we view things, and our having to be able to interact with people who believe those things without being contentious. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to explain what you just said in other terms, is to deal with people who are solely focused on the bread that they here were interested in eating, which was filling their stomachs and not their soul. So you talk about Ron dealing with people who have other opinions, so to speak. That is the person who is only concerned or focused on, like I said, the food bread that feeds their stomach. I'm finished.
Yeah, thank you. I think that sums it up beautifully. Is this making sense to everybody, or anybody have any questions or comments, anything else they want to add? If you, again, as we always say, questions are welcome. So if there's something you don't understand, just say, I don't understand, and we'll move forward. One of the objectives anyway is what we do is on a weekly basis. It's not only bringing understanding and clarity to what's in the book, but as was just stated, we deal with life and where we are now. So that is also equally important as opening the book and gaining understanding. If it doesn't help you in your everyday life, the scripture that always comes back to me that that I could not see for the longest time, and it's caught root in me here lately. I guess I'll say is the scripture that says, "I say, yeah, Elohim." We can talk about that all we want, but until you see it, until it makes sense to you, till you make it applicable in your life, it was just something I was learning, and I knew it was there, and I knew it was truth, but I did not see it in me. So what we're saying here is these verses, these words, to not only bring clarity and understanding, but to bring comfort, so that you can gain in your personal experiences, and those voices become one, but you can also quiet the voices in others, because they see you as being Elohim, although they would never see it or say it in that particular way. Questions or comments?
I like what you said just now in terms of recognizing that within you, which is also what Jesus was alluding to when we were talking about seeing the miracles and the signs. And the miracles and the signs were also something that was internal and something that was deeper that they were failing to realize and see and experience at that particular moment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The next part is verse I think is awesome. And I'm still in verse 27, where and if you look at this, he says, endure to eternal life, which the Son of Man should give to you, for to him, on him, the Father, even God, has sent his seal. The Son of Man to me is a link. The Son of Man to me describes a bridge. In other words, we've heard for years in church that we can't be God, and God is apart from us. And you grow up thinking this is something that's, God up high looking down low on us. This is saying I am you and you are me. This is saying we are one. This is saying I too came from the womb. This is saying that there's nothing I am saying to you that I am that you are not as well. Not that you can be, but that you already are as well. And it kind of brings comfort and ease to you to know that the scripture, and as I said, I struggled with saying that I was Elohim and seeing it. I can see that now. I can readily see it. I can also see it does not bother me to say, who are you? Who do you think you are that you can make a difference in the earth, or you can make a difference to this person, or someone saying something or doing something, and it becomes a mountain because I feel like there's nothing I can do about it. I don't feel that anymore. My thoughts now are, okay, what do I do with this? Which direction do I take? Or take a deep breath and go for a walk and think it over. But there's always something that I can do. It may not be immediate, but at least my desire is there, and I have the strength and the confidence to see it now. So the Son of Man to me is that link. He is all that he is. He is all that you are. He is the universe, and so are you. Right. So when yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead, Pastor.
When you saying Son of Man, something clicked.
Okay.
Jesus saying Son of Man for a reason. The reason Jesus kept saying Son of Man is because the literal translation of that is human being. And Jesus is saying, I'm a human just like you.
Yes. I did not know the lyrics, but yeah. We are one and the same.
Yes. And what happens with this translation is no different than translating a wound as father. It is a subliminal way of creating separation between us and our Creator, between each other, as well as a subliminal way of putting maleness on a pedestal. It's a subliminal method of keeping the feminine as a footstool and exhorting maleness at every juncture. Your Savior Jesus is a male. Your Father is a male. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yes, sir, I do.
So what I suggest we do is, as we talked about last Monday in regards to the Father, insert source of all sources. And when it comes to the Son of Man, insert what really should be there. And that is human being or human. You're a human. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a huge difference. It changes the whole statement. I think one of the worst things in the earth that we have bought into, and we can look at that as a people, as a race, or as spiritual beings, as what Pastor just described, and even from a human perspective, and that is separation. That is our enemy. I mean, from if you look at what was done to indigenous people on every land, it was all about separation. This is mine. This is mine. You have to get yours. This is what makes me who I am. And the more that I accumulate, the higher my title, that not only does it separate me from you in distance, but it separates me from you in status and class. And that carries over into religion, that we buy into the fact that we could never be God. That is too high a class for us. So we have to recognize this for what it is, and to go back to the uniqueness and the oneness. I could not feel vibrations or the rhythm of what Barbara speaks if we were not one. The words that Sheldon just said did not make sense to me if we were not one on that level at that place. So the separation is what, to me, is one of the driving forces that has brought devastation into the earth, and that is something too that we are recovering.
And
so
that same subliminal force, right?
Mm-hmm.
While it says that Jesus is God, right? It presents as looking like it, and at the same time, it treats you as though you are its servant. So you have to go to it for all of your needs in order for you to sustain your life. So now, subliminally, you are embracing this as your God, your creator, your sustainer. These are the subliminal effects of religion that are perpetuated daily that we must obliterate.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, sir. Go ahead. I was going to go somewhere else. Go ahead. Finish it out.
The effects of this subliminal relationship that has been fostered has been forcibly enforced. And now we understand that it has been violently thrust upon us in a physical/spiritual manner. We must regain who we are, our essence, and dispel these shackles of this subliminal force by wholeheartedly buying into and embracing the essence of our being, because if we continue to live a subliminal life and call Jesus the Son of Man as opposed to human, and call Abun Father as in a maleness instead of the source of everything that it is, if we continue to reference the Spirit as being He when it's clearly feminine, if we continue to do that, we continue to keep our feet planted in a subliminal world of non-existence, as opposed to traveling a journey that leads us to all that exists. I'm done.
And I think it is incumbent upon us to lead that journey. And that is why we're doing what we do.
We have no choice.
Yes.
We are committed to it, so choice has been given up.
Questions or comments, guys? I hope this makes sense, and I hope it kind of settles into where we are now in this land. A lot of stuff is taking place on a daily basis, but we are who we are. There is nothing in the earth that can change that. There's nothing that can take that away. So take comfort in the fact, and I'm glad, I think it was Barbara or Audrey, I can't remember, went back and looked at Capernaum and crossing the sea. I'm glad somebody looked at that. We are Capernaum. We are the comfort. We are what's beyond the sea, what is beyond confusion, what is beyond the mystery, what is beyond what is unknown. It is us. So take comfort in that and recognize that, the things that you see, as Evelyn pointed out, and even I pointed out, the things that we see on a daily basis, if they have even a brief effect on us, what more effect are they having on those who are close to losing hope? So you become that hope. You gladly accept that and become that hope. Okay? Again, just to kind of sum up verse 27, the Son of Man being the human, and Father being a boom, and we're talking about Father, Mother, we're talking about the universe, the birth of the creator of all things. He's saying we're all one. If he's saying he's a human being, he's saying he is you and you are he or it. We're all in this thing together. So that vibration that we feel is the same vibration that a boom feels, that a boom has sent out. It is the same vibration that every human being has access to. And when we feel that vibration, when we become one with that vibration, we are one. We're all one together. We are not male. We are not female. We are one. Okay? Verse 28 said, they said therefore to him, what shall we do that we may work the works of God? Jesus answered and said unto them, this is the works of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent. I had seen that a little bit different than what Pastor had seen it. I had seen it as something, that verse with them asking the question as something positive, because that should be the catalyst to push you along the way that you need to go. And I think he looked at it from a different perspective, seeing it as a religious thing, and him say, and you can see it both ways, I suppose, that it's going to take more than you just being religious. This is going to take more than you just being going to church and being an officer in a church and doing those kind of things. This is going to take some commitment and desire. So, am I saying that right, Pastor? Do you care to comment, please?
I saw it as them, because they were only familiar with the work of their religious efforts and antics. But they were asking, how could their work complete their works to get to where they are supposed to be, and not understanding that the physical works or the physical bondage of religion does not move you along this journey. It is a spiritual journey, and it must be spiritually traveled. So, and I think they were struggling to embrace what Jesus meant when he was talking about not focusing on the meat that perish, and that coupled with doing the work that he was speaking of. I think they were confused about it. But I think they were representing religiosity in that regard.
Okay. His reply to them says something to me. This is the work of God. This is the work of God, that you believe. This is the work of God, that you believe. That's a statement to me. So what the Father wants is for, what Abum wants, what Elohim wants, what the universe seeks of us, is that we become one with the rhythm and the vibrations that we feel that truly represent who we are, that we see and understand who we are. That is the desire, the work of the Father, of God. That kind of spoke to me when I saw that. There is no hidden agenda. There is nothing magical about this. That you understand who you are. That is of utmost importance. That is you see yourself not only as the Son of Man, but you become the one that leads other men to understanding who they are. You. So as we look at that, I just thought that these verses kind of speak to where we are in our land, hopefully giving us a little assurance and giving us a little strength to recognizing and that we're on the right path, on the right journey. Our desire and love of truth is the strongest weapon that we have. And as long as we pursue that and understand and walk in love and forgiveness, there is nothing in the earth that can waver that. Absolutely nothing. Questions or comments?
Yes, good morning, Ron.
Good morning, George. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I just want to concur with what has been said and spoken thus far. I think that, when we say we are one in the spirit and we are one with the Lord or one with Elohim, I know earlier, George mentioned you mentioned in reference to the signs, and then you mentioned in reference to the sea. And I think that, we are in an opportunity to be able to connect back with nature in that divine way, that we're able to not just see with our eyes, but we're able to see with our spirit. And I think the more that we can appreciate the beauty of God's creation by going to the sea, because we know that Jesus, most of his teachings were out in the wilderness or out, by the sea. And I think that, again, it's just a reassuring to know that, we have, the power, we have the energy to be able to go back to the beginning, to appreciate matter, to be able to appreciate, the sea, the water, the trees, the oceans. And so it's not a matter of us seeing it with our eyes, because a lot of times, and if I'm incorrect, someone can correct me, but we actually don't even really see with our eyes. I think that is just a way that there's a mirror, that we see through our thoughts or our mind. And so being able to understand it more from a spiritual perspective is definitely of importance. And I think today, you shared that, in reference to us being able to appreciate who we are and reconnecting back to the source of all sources, as our pastor said. So I just want to share those thoughts. I'm done. Okay.
Thank you, George. On the heels of what you just said, I remember something. You kind of helped me along that journey, George. I don't know if you remember our first trip to Philly. And first couple of days there, you and me and some of the guys from your church, we'd get together and go out and walk. One of the parks that you had was your favorite place to walk. And I won't forget that, getting up in the early morning and getting out there and looking at nature. And we stop and look at this and look at that. Look, I remember there was a fallen tree we looked at. And I mean, I remember that. That's going to always be with me, how peaceful that was. And you're right, those journeys and being one with nature, it kind of sustains your peace. And it's great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ron, this is Audrey. I concur with you because in verse 29, when he says, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." Well, who has he sent? He sent not only Jesus, he sent the Holy Spirit, he sent me. So
yes, thank you. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, the work of God is that we believe that in whom he sent, believe in ourselves, believe that we too are a manifestation of Elohim. So, yes, I concur with you.
That's an excellent point and an excellent stopping point, I think, unless someone else has questions or comments. I like that.
So in the final analysis, based on what Audrey just said and what you said beforehand, what miracle signs, what blah, 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 we are the miracle.
Yes. And moving forward, we recognize that. We recognize the fact that not only we do not all have to talk daily to recognize the love that holds us together. And I'm talking about everybody on this line now, everybody that joins in, we are a force. And we are the branches that reach out to those that may be in Zimbabwe, or those who may be in Conway, South Carolina, anywhere in the globe that are looking for truth, that have the desire to be one with Elohim. We are a part of them as well. And it is our strength, our vibration, our love, our compassion that reaches the ends of this universe. We are all that. And I love how Audrey puts that. Not just you are part of the Word. So when it talks about this Son of Man and the Word of God, he's talking about us. And that is not meant to be boastful or to see myself as something high and mighty. That is a humbling thing to say. Your responsibilities are great, but you are equipped to handle this. So in the coming days, the coming months, even years, the things that we are to see, the things that we just stay the course. And we look for the signs, the internal things in us that tells us which directions to travel, what things we need to do, when we need to come together. That is the gist of it all. Questions or comments, y'all? One more time. I said that was it, but this it for real. No questions or comments. Okay. I hope it made sense. And you know what? I'm going to say this. I don't know why I was so nervous this morning, but God, the questions and the comments from everybody and the going back and the tying in verses and things. Thank you. That brings it all together, made it all make sense. So if there are no questions or comments, we will see each other tomorrow and go from there.
I think Pastor wanted to repeat some instructions.
Okay, that's right.
Thank you. For those who were not on at the beginning, I wanted to repeat what I stated at the beginning. That is, on next Saturday at the same time, we, meaning the cadre of teachers, will discuss the message that's hidden in plain sight in regards to Barabbas and Jesus. Why was Barabbas released and why was Jesus crucified? And how that relates to the scapegoat. The caveat to our meeting on next Saturday is this. Those of you who will be on with us, we're asking if you have any questions as we do enter the discussion, that you would make a note of your questions. And when the discussion amongst us is concluded, then you raise your questions. Our discussion might conclude in 2 hours or 3 hours, or it may take 2 days or 3 days. We don't know yet. However, you will have opportunity to present your questions when we conclude. So, having said that, I appreciate your reminding me of that, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
I have a question. I've been thinking about tithing, and I'm wondering if you can give an overview of what it is. And I realize we've only got maybe half an hour left for our usual amount of time. But I'm wondering if you can go over like what it is, how it works, etc.
Well, what is? I didn't understand the beginning of the question.
What is tithing?
Oh, okay.
And I understand it's for the support of the priests, but it's something we haven't visited in a long time. And I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Tithing.
Caught you off guard.
Tithing came into effect when the tribes were given portions of land. And all of the tribes were given land with the exception of the tribe of Levi. And Levi was the priest of the tribes. So the tribe of Levi was given a tithe, and that is a tenth of everything that the other 12 tribes brought in by way of gain, whether it be grains or whether it be meat in terms of sheep or whether it be income. And that tithe was given to the priest forever, as it is stated in the scriptures. And with that, the provisions for the temple, or at that time the tent, were to be sustained, as well as the lives of the Levite priests. And, of course, with everything else, it became an abusive thing. The priests abused it, and today, so holy men abuse it. However, it was never rescinded and was never intended to be rescinded. So the tithe is still in effect today, which means that it is 10% of what income you receive, and it is supposed to be rendered to the ones who has spiritual charge over you. In other words, your shepherd. Does that help you, Jenny? Of course, it's more in depth than that, but
Right.
It's an overview.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious, and this is not to replace at all, like the physical act of tithing and actually surrendering the money. But what does that look like in the spiritual realm?
In the spiritual realm, the obedience of tithing physically is simply obedience to a mandate of the Creator, and is not a mandate that's going to end up with you being condemned to quote-unquote hell. However, it is a mandate that speaks to the sustaining of the one who teaches you, who leads you, who covers you, your shepherd, and the structures that you use as a shelter to be instructed in, the sustaining of that. Now, it does not in any way, it should not, I should say, impede upon how the shepherd responds to you or anyone else in that regard. The disbursement of the tithe and offering is predicated on the discretion of the shepherd. Now, I do not teach that to anyone else because I did that once, and that particular shepherd took advantage of the people with it. So I don't even point that out in Scripture to them anymore. So, spiritually, obedience is no different than any other spiritual obedience. If you obey it spiritually, and there are a lot of things that in your life you would have to contend with that you avoid. And the avoidance of it is not that you're buying your way out of it. It's simply that you're being obedient, and therefore the universe intercedes or intervenes for you as a result of your obedience. And there are a lot of people who are ignorant of what I just said, and it doesn't mean that they are going to or have been beat up because of it. Grace has taken charge in that regard. Yet, I will say this. You did not ask this question because you only needed to know or wanted to know. This question was asked probably for behalf, just like everyone else, all the rest of them on behalf of other people. And thus meaning that the Creator has an intention of speaking to those who needed to hear it and giving them opportunity to be obedient to it. That's it.
Okay.
Anything, my dear?
Yes. I'm still thinking, though, of, so if we are taking 10% of what sustains us and giving it to the priest, shorthand, the priest takes that and creates more, I don't know, spiritual understanding or abundance. I'm really struggling to articulate this, but here's something that comes to mind. A perpetual motion machine. And I'm thinking of like a feedback loop of understanding and sustenance that's flowing between the priest and those that sit under the teaching. Am I making any sense at all? I'm really struggling.
There is a loop there. Okay, how do you feel? Let's say that you have a child 10 years old, and that child you're responsible for taking care of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you take care of that child, and that child becomes what it's supposed to be as a result of that. Most of us who have children say to our children, your job is to go to school, it's not to receive a check from anyone. So how does that relate to the priest receiving tithes? That relates in that it frees the priesthood up from having to be caught up in the rat race, in our words, in our vernacular today, of being out there in marketplace. In the time of Jesus, it was the priest who was given directions to the nation, and that freedom to do that came from them being recipients of the tithe, and they also were responsible for helping those who were in need.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I was just thinking about how the money that's rendered and perhaps even the thoughts and questions that are also in a way surrendered in our discussions, that increases the amount of enlightenment that's available for everyone. And part of that loop just increases the share of enlightenment that's available overall.
it does.
It's just a different way of looking at it from the, this money.
See, what happens, Janice, is we have been taught in a quiet way that money is our sustainer, and we are supposed to hold on to all that we get, and that the preacher doesn't work or the priest doesn't work, so why should we render anything to it when the Scripture clearly tells us to do that? And the rendering of it makes the priest responsible for the outcome of what happens with it. And if the priest does not do what it is supposed to do in regards to it, then the priest is the one who suffers as a result of it. It took me years to get to a place where I understood or accepted that I did not have to be running from meeting to meeting to prove that I'm working. When I was sitting up, days on end, trying to understand the Scriptures and make every effort to be in a position to not only answer the questions of those who the Creator had given me to shepherd, but also being able to not just only teach them, but to fulfill what had been shown to me from the beginning, and that is to train teachers and leaders. And now I see the reason for that. So I guess all I can say in regards to this is that there is a loop of sorts, and it also opens up the giver, because the very thing that sustains you, you are sharing it, so your energy goes along with it. And if you are doing it because you're being obedient, that's a rendering. If you're doing it for tax reasons, then that's an attempt to purchase something, and that doesn't work out too well for you. So,
this is Barbara. I also see it as a means of not only being obedient, but we create space. It's like a hand that's closed. If it's always closed, we can't even receive, and no one else can receive from us. But the tithe is like a conduit. When we give, we create space to receive more, and that doesn't necessarily mean money. From a spiritual perspective, that doesn't necessarily mean money at all. So we're given more. It may be that if we are sitting in a place where the Word is not feeding us, that we find some place where we are fed by the Word. It may be that a problem or a challenge that we had, we find a way to overcome it. Whatever the means, it's like it clears. It disconnects part of what we earned in this physical realm and saying, I'm giving this. And it's like it's a thread that's broken, that I am not just tied to the physical. I believe in the spiritual, and when I tithe, even though it may be money, whatever it is, it creates space for me to receive more so that I can share more.
Thank you.
I love that example
Anyone
of an
else?
open hand. An open hand, it's very helpful.
Thank you.
All right, then. So
Anything
my last
else?
question, yes, my last question is, I guess, practical and compared to the other things I've been asking. How do we tithe now? Because we're on the phone. How are you accepting tithes?
Through PayPal, the Google Pay, bank account numbers, that kind of thing. Zelle.
Okay. Do people just reach out to you directly?
What happened, we went to, we had in place pretty much a system before we left the building. But people can reach out to me directly, and I can give them the information that they need depending on which method they want to use. And reaching out to me directly is 864-426-2188, 864-426-2188. 2188. And if you don't reach me, leave a message, and I will call you back, or you can send me a text at that number. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you. We also have a PayPal link on the front page of inpursuitoftruth.org. Inpursuitoftruth.org. So if you want to render tithes that way through PayPal, you can. All right, that was all. Thank you.
You know what, Janice? Thank you. I appreciate that. While we were talking about that, the videos, are they up from last week?
They are. I posted them this morning. I had a feeling someone may ask. I'm about to have a bit more free time on my hands, so I'll be doing a better job of posting more quickly.
Okay, I have received a question about that during the course of the week and a text this morning about that. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I usually hear from Sheldon. He's like, I put the videos in the Dropbox. So yeah, they're up now.
He's so diplomatic.
Is me though? Unless he's giving you a hard time, which is like one of his jobs, his official jobs. Don't make that face, Sheldon. I can see him on Zoom. He's making a face.
Okay, Sheldon, stop blushing. Any other questions?
I have no idea what either one of you are speaking of.
Okay.
Whoa, Reb. I got one question for you, man, or a question to anyone. In reference to today's lesson, can we try and figure out everything from the speech of 5,000 to the actual crucifixion of Jesus? You know, everything that took place from that point to the crucifixion. And from what limited I know, I think that was one of Jesus' last great miracles. Because, and I just look at it kind of maybe not in the best way. When I look at a great poet, their last speech is real significant. When you look at Winston McIntosh, Marley, John Lennon, Martin Luther King Jr. is not a poet, yet his last speech was quite significant. Yeah, I think he ended up passing out in his speech. So, because it's just real intriguing to me to speak to that many people, it was something of importance. It's just like I look at it, if you sleeping, Reverend Richard, or you on the couch and you get a dream or a vision, you're going to wake up and you're going to call all your teachers. Hey, I need to get with you today at 6 o'clock. Everything's good. So it was something, you know, he was trying, maybe Jesus did know that his time was running out. Maybe didn't. Okay, well, that, all right. Sometimes things sound better coming from other people.
We don't choose what we teach. What we teach chooses us. Like last week, I thought that I was going to talk about bread, and we ended up reiterating what we meant by love, and then that rolled into something that we had not planned, and that is in dealing with the physical sexual abuse of females. So tomorrow, maybe we will talk about the bread because it's in conjunction with what Ron taught today, or led today. So again, we don't choose what we're going to teach. What we teach chooses us. And I think that, and I'm glad you raised that, and the reason being is because I think we need to understand if we are going to travel a journey and be led on a journey that we have no real knowledge about, trusting that the Creator is going to lead us in the righteous manner, then it is not incumbent upon us to choose what we teach, but to be chosen by what we teach, which means that free will has been relinquished. And in relinquishing that free will, especially in the area of teaching, then we will receive what humanity needs in particular, and that harkens back to what Janice was asking in regards to the tithe. If my free will as covering is not totally relinquished in every respect of my life, then I cannot be as open as I need to be in order for me to be a conduit through which not only the sheep are fed, but also a conduit through which I'm able to receive in such a manner that will go beyond those who I cover, have knowledge of covering, and it reaches to the whole of humanity. So it puts me in a position of being the utterance of a prophetic voice. However, if I were to make attempts to choose what I'm going to teach, or we say to the teachers, you need to choose something to teach, then that puts me in the area of being a seminarian. And being a seminarian says that we understand absolutely nothing about the scriptures. So we have made the choice to stay in the role of receiving while we are in the wilderness of this journey, if that makes any sense to you, sir. And I hope that does. George and others, does that make sense? Hello?
It does. It makes sense, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Bottom line, I guess that's why we get messages at the last minute, right? Okay. With that, I defer to Ron's efforts to say we'll see you tomorrow.
Well, if there are no more questions or comments, I look forward to tomorrow, everyone. Have a great day.
See y'all tomorrow.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Ron.
See you
Thank you,
tomorrow.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a
Have a
great
good
day.
day.
Bye, family.